Hi, this is Sherry from OurLifeHomeschooling.com, where I blog to encourage moms and dads, but moms are my circle, so I'll be talking mostly with moms. Recently, I've run into so many people who have decided to homeschool for various reasons, and they're looking for help. And when I started over 10 years ago, I was looking for help too. And the way I found it was by meeting other homeschoolers and just asking them questions, finding out how they were doing it. And I found that I connected with different people for different reasons. Um, and it was in meeting a lot of different people and being exposed to a lot of different ways of homeschooling that helped me to find my niche and what was going to work for me and for my kids. So I started this blog to be able to introduce people to all different kinds of homeschoolers and all different ways of homeschooling in hope that it would be able to be an encouragement and an inspiration and to just help some people get started. So today I'm talking with Melissa. Melissa is a friend that has been homeschooling with me since the beginning. When our oldest kids were about 3 or 4, we met and we started homeschooling together, and we've been kind of side by side all along the way through the different changes, the ups and downs, and starting to read, and then upper elementary, and then middle school, and now high school. So Melissa has a lot of experience and she has a wide range of ages. And I think there's just a lot to be learned from this interview. So I hope you enjoy it. Hi, Melissa.
Hey, Sherry.
So you and I have been friends for quite a long time,
Mhm.
going back probably Ty and Olivia were 3 or 4.
Yeah.
So that was, 12 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And
Sounds right.
our oldest kids were about 3 or 4, and we knew each other. We were both thinking about homeschooling,
I
and
think we were probably both pregnant too.
probably, and we just kind of jumped out and decided to start. We had a few other friends. There were 5 of us, and we started meeting in each other's homes every week, and that's developed into the co-op that our kids are still a part of today. So I think that's a kind of a cool story. So that's where we pretty much met, but I'm going to let you go ahead and introduce yourself.
Okay. My name is Melissa Groff, and I am married to my husband, Ryan, for, goodness, 2020, 18 years this summer. So we have 9 kids. Our oldest, Olivia, will be turning 16 this fall. So she just finished her 9th grade year of homeschooling. And then all the way down to my youngest just turned 4 in March, and he's a preschooler, so he won't start kindergarten until the next year. So I pretty much have almost every age down through there and just about every grade down through there. So I have been homeschooling from the beginning. I hadn't planned on it, but I started with Olivia in kindergarten, so it's been about 10 years that we've been at it. And we are from the Lancaster area. We live in East Petersburg, which is a smaller town just north of Lancaster, Pennsylvania. So.
Okay. So if you can think back to the beginning when you started with Olivia, what kind of led you to homeschooling, or what made you think that this was a route that you wanted to take?
Well, to be honest, I did not want to homeschool. I graduated with a teaching certificate, and I actually was a public school teacher for just 2 years before we started our family. And it was not on my radar at all when we had kids. I just assumed my kids would go to school. They'd be in the system because I was in the system and I came through the system. So I don't know how old Olivia was. my brother, who they also homeschool, claims he was praying for me, but um, she was probably like maybe 3, 4, maybe. Well, right around the time when then I met you, I would assume. Um, I was just we were really kind of struck by the idea and the possibility. Like I'd never even considered it before. And through just conversations with my brother and his wife, several speakers that we had listened to that were just godly people, but also big in the homeschooling world. Big name Bodhi Bacham, although an older name in the homeschooling world, I guess. Younger homeschooling families haven't heard much about him because he's kind of moved on to other things. Heard him speak and several other people just about the opportunity we have to homeschooling to really disciple our kids. That it's not only is there the educational piece where you can really tailor their education and they're tailored to their learning style and do things as a family, but deeper than that, just discipling them. And that really struck a chord with me. And I also, on a less deep level, began to think I had never put my kids in daycare. I didn't want them in daycare, partly because I was a stay-at-home mom. I did some coaching on the side, so we had babysitting help some, but part of the reason for that was because I wanted to watch them learn to talk and walk and do all those first things and celebrate that with them. And I started to think, well, why wouldn't I want to watch them learn to read? Fast forward 10 years and it's not my favorite thing to teach. But it's still rewarding to watch them come from not even knowing the alphabet to reading chapter books. Still extremely rewarding, even though the process can be frustrating at times. So that was another part of it too. I'm like, why would I send my kid off to school and not be a part of them discovering our world and learning new things? Mm-hmm. So I think I answered that question. Was kind of how we got into it.
Yeah.
And then I walked into it pretty blindly. I had no idea what I was doing. I think every homeschooler
kind of do it blindly.
Yeah. And I think we all start with like, let's take school and let's do it at home. Let's set up a desk. Let's get all the textbooks. So we all kind of start that way. And that's fine. That's not a great place. It's a fine way to start because you'll figure it out pretty quickly from there. What works, what you like. And then, make it actually homeschool, not school at home.
Right. Yeah. So it's summer now and you're kind of in a completely different focus, but if you can think back to the school year and just kind of explain what a typical day looks like for you guys.
Well, this question always makes me laugh because, and I know you're right. I don't know if you want to hear about a typical day or an ideal day.
Right.
Part of it's large family and part of it is just life because we all have interruptions. I was thinking about this too, like even with a smaller family, there's individuals and we all have emotions and we all have physical things going on or spiritual things, heart things going on. So you never quite know what each day will look like because you don't know if, the 10-year-old's going to come down with an attitude and give you trouble from the get-go, or if the 4-year-old starts puking at 7 a.m. in the morning, or you never know. So I wouldn't say there's a typical day, but I do have an ideal day. And I can kind of quickly go through that if you want me to take that time. Mm-hmm. My ideal day and what I strive for. So I say ideal like it's not attainable. It is attainable in pieces, and some days go much smoother than other days. But every day has, we accomplish parts of this. And in the end, learning is happening and we're growing, and it does happen even if it doesn't happen in the way that I want it to. Anyways, back to my ideal day. I would get up early before the kids, get my exercise, quiet time done, and be ready to, face the day with them. I like my olders to get up earlier than my younger kids so that they can have some quiet time and even get started on math early. And if I'm available to help them with math without being distracted by the littles, that's really helpful. And it gets math out of the way first thing in the day.
We do the same. Yeah, we do the same thing because it just seems like that's where they need the most fresh start.
Yes. and I call it our math lab. Like if it works out, they're sitting around the table, ideally we're sipping our tea and everyone's happy, and I work with them as needed. Of course, it doesn't always look that pretty. They're still half sleeping and frustrated about math, whatever. But and then we have breakfast. As littles wake up, then we all have breakfast together, clean up, and then we would do our family time, which with my age range, from ninth down to preschool, is fairly short and focused. So we would do a scripture reading, a hymn study where we might sing a hymn or talk about it. Sometimes a short devotional, or we'd like to listen to Worldview in 5 minutes, a short podcast on some world news happening, and then pray. And that would be pretty much it, like 15, 20 minutes max, because by then the littles need a little break and the older kids are just wanting to get started on their work. So then from there, they would break off and I would work with the youngers first. Olders would do independent, get the youngers through their stuff, and then work with the older kids on just certain subjects. I don't do everything with them. As my kids get older, they are very independent, and I kind of check in and manage what they're doing a little bit, and then I would do writing and grammar with a group of them. That was the main thing I did in groups this year, or meet with them about a history assignment or whatever. So break out from there, and ideally would be done by lunchtime with our main schooling. Afternoons would be free for outdoor time, or pursuing art stuff or free reading, or just kind of the more lovely and beautiful things that I love to see happen in our homeschool, and are hard to fit in that morning time. So that's pretty much what our school day in a nutshell would look like. So
yeah. So you have a real wide range of ages. How do you do that? Olivia's in 9th.
Yes.
Emmett is 3.
He's just turned 4. Yep. So he's a preschooler, not quite ready for kindergarten. I did have a kindergartner this year though as well. Yes, not an easy answer, and I don't think there's any one way that it looks like. And again, each day for me would vary depending on the needs of those younger children. A lot of it for me came down to, I had to let go. So when I started, I wanted us to do it all together. That was kind of my dream. Like, yeah, we sit down and we read our history spine together, and then we do science together, and we all talk about it and have these great discussions. And I realized pretty quickly as my oldest kids got older, that wasn't going to happen. And maybe some large families can. That doesn't work well for our large family and our personalities. I have some pretty highly motivated students who either just want to get it done, or just have different interests that they want to spend more time on. So I came to realize that our time together as a family, our actual family time in schooling, needed to be much shorter, so that they were free to pursue their studies and get their stuff done kind of in their time. So as far as the different ages, your kids kind of naturally grow and get older and more independent, and you try to instill habits and structure in them when they're younger. And for us, most of them have just run with it. Now, it doesn't mean that they don't need reminders to stay on task, or a list of assignments, or other help. It certainly doesn't mean they're completely free of guidance, or that it's just easy. But they can kind of run with it, and then I can focus on the younger ones where they need it. The one thing that I like to do now this has changed in high school, which I could talk about later, but for my kids as a whole, I like our history to we do time periods, so I like us to all be kind of in the same time period. Just because it's
what do you do together, and what do they do? Because you said a lot of your older kids do independent work. What are the things that you need to do with as a group?
And I say independent work. Some of them are kind of grouped together. Olivia, going into 9th grade, I let her really tailor her 9th grade year and her her studies. So she pretty much did most things on her own. Aside from writing and grammar, I had her grouped with my next two kiddos. And we did a writing program together, and some grammar together. So that was one area where we could actually share each other's writing and listen and read it and have some fun discussion time. So I did value that, definitely having them interact together on a topic. And then my second, third, and fourth daughters, I guess I should have mentioned, but we have 7 girls and then the 2 boys on the end. So we have a lot of girls. Not because I don't like my boys, they're just little yet. My second, third, and fourth daughters did the same history. So they were pretty much working on pace, and sometimes they could do some things together, or they could work on their own, or, if I wanted to do anything with them, discuss the chapter as a group, like we could do that with those 3. And then my last 3 daughters were pretty grouped together as far as, and with them I would still read aloud their history. We would read aloud some science. The 5th daughter was independent in reading. The last 2 I would do the same thing together. So other than our family time, there wasn't really one thing we did together, but then there were groups of things they did. And what I was saying about history is, because we do history time periods, all of my kids were in the same history time period. So
That's nice.
Even though we were all learning in different ways, or with different texts or spines or whatever, we were all kind of studying some of the same things in history, which I enjoyed, keeping everybody kind of together in that sense. And then, with field trips or extra things, we could kind of all glean more from them, because that's what we were studying this year. And then science is the one subject that I really have let my kids diversify a lot, especially in elementary. I kind of let them pick and choose, especially if they're reading on their own. So,
You mean pick and choose, like the textbook options, or maybe not even a textbook?
Right, some of both. So we love to use like Apologia. I really like God's Design series, which is put out by, I'm going to forget the name, but Ken Ham.
Yes.
Answers in Genesis.
Mm-hmm.
And there was actually some other books too that they found and would use, but more the topic was like, what do you want to learn about in science this year? And I have my 6th grader very interested in the medical field. So the last 2 years, she's done like some anatomy stuff, the history of medicine, like those types of science things. So we had to find a few different books than what was maybe in the mainstream. And then my 5th grader right below her chose to do some of the God's Design series. So it's just one area where, it's really a lot of exposure of the different topics in elementary school. They don't have to necessarily know any one thing or master it. And so I like to let them really pursue their interests in that area.
Yeah, I think that's great. I mean, when they've picked it, it just is going to make all the difference in, how much they're going to apply themselves, because
Definitely.
of their choice. So
right.
Cool. So this is a little bit off topic, but kind of along the same idea of teaching multiple ages. What do you do with your preschoolers? And if you can even remember back to like having, babies, how did you do that?
Right.
That's really not easy.
As far as like, what did I give them for academic or to keep them busy, or?
Yeah. How did you, manage just meeting the needs of a baby and a toddler, and yet like keep up with kids, with all the homeschooling needs? Or can you think of, what you would say to a young mom who's there, having been there yourself?
Yes. I would say keep it simple and focus on the most important things that, you want to accomplish in your day. So if that's Bible reading, then make sure it gets done early, and, make sure it gets done before the baby's needs to nurse or whatever. And then kind of work your way from there. And honestly, for my younger kids, for my school age kids, when I had babies and toddlers, in the beginning I thought, I have to do every subject and do all this stuff for them. And I tried that, And let's just face it, it didn't work because I had an infant and a toddler, and sometimes two toddlers and an infant. And you just can't do everything. At least I couldn't do everything. So I really tried to focus in on the things that really mattered. And for me, that was getting my kids to learn to read and giving them some math. Because really, once you get them learning to read, writing comes easier, and then they can read on their own different books and learn that way. And then you're not tied to just sitting with that kid and reading to them. Not that reading aloud to them is a wonderful thing, and I try to make it a part of our schooling still.
Yeah, but
even to
when they can read, it's like giving them a tool that they can just
exactly
for themselves. Yeah.
Right. So that's the priority when they're little. And the other thing is, it doesn't have to all happen between 9 and 11. Maybe it's a rough morning and we don't get to it till the baby's taking their afternoon nap, and then I can sit with my kindergartner or first grader and do a short 15-20 minute lesson. So I think also letting go of like when it has to happen. Honestly, we've even done school in the evening if my day was just crazy, but Ryan was going to be home in the evening and we had nothing else going, then there's nothing wrong with pulling out those books then. So I think really, and I call myself a flexible scheduler. So, I have a routine that we try to follow. We have a schedule, but it does get broken, and I have to be flexible, and I have to deal with that, and I have to be okay with changing it up that day. And also realizing that some days it just won't happen, and that's okay too. So there's 365 days. We only have to get 180, so there's a lot of flex room in there to get it in, and not be stressed out about it. So
Yeah, that's good. So were there any roadblocks that you hit, or just places that felt like you came to a point where maybe you were just discouraged, or you didn't know how to get past something, or maybe even like a child who the personalities were so different and you just didn't know how to work through it? Did you have any difficult,
I can think of two. I'm sure I have more than this, but there's two that stand out in my mind. One, it was math. We can do math in our house. We're not math minds, I wouldn't say. So it's been a struggle for some of my kids to really wrap their mind around it and just get it sometimes. And they always say your first kid's your guinea pig, and that was certainly true in our house. Olivia has had 5 math curriculums in her 10 years of homeschooling, which to me feels like a lot. I like to try new things or whatever, but math just seems like it's math. You just do it, right? But we did try several different things, and I kind of came to realize that there wasn't necessarily a magic curriculum for her. Sure, I could consider her learning needs and style or whatever, but it really came down to what was going to work for me as well. It had to be manageable for both of us, because there was a fabulous curriculum that we used for maybe 2 years, Right Start. Love it. It's a great curriculum, very teacher intensive, and I couldn't keep up with it with her and all the other kids coming up behind, so it wasn't a good fit for me either. So we really had to find something that worked for both of us. And at this point, we've landed on Matthew C, and it's going well for her. And I've really just kind of come to the point where she's also not going to be an A+ math student, and that's okay too. We're just going to keep moving along. And each time that we switched curriculums, we kind of went backwards a little bit to make sure that she didn't have any gaps in her math, because every curriculum hits up different topics a little bit differently. And I was really afraid that we were going to miss something important, and then she'd have this big hole in her math mind and it would be even worse and fall apart. So we ended up not where we wanted her to be going into 9th grade, but we've just kept at it. Honestly, we do math all summer long. I do that with all my kids now, just to keep them fresh and moving forward, because math is not a strong suit. And it's worked out just fine. She's pretty much where she needs to be or wants to be, because the reality is, there's no one place that you have to be on this journey. The world tells you there's certain places that you need to be, and obviously there's certain requirements that need to be met as you finish up high school, but we can all kind of get there. They can all get there in their own way and in their own time. So that was
for homeschooling, is to to meet the needs of the child, not just
Yeah,
to a certain point by a certain age and make sure we've covered. Although it's good to have goals and stuff, but that's the reason
sure.
to meet
Right.
their
And one of the great things that has come out of her math struggles is just, we've had so many conversations in the midst of tears where, she's like, I'm so dumb at math, I don't get it, and whatever. And just coming to terms with and having conversations about, like, look, it's okay that math is not your thing. You can draw beautifully. That's your gifting. Math is not your gifting. And
yeah,
that's okay. It doesn't mean we don't do it. It's an important life skill. We use math. I use math pretty much every day in grocery shopping or whatever. So you need to know how to do it to a degree. But it's okay that it's not what you're best in. And we just keep plugging away. And, if you don't get 100% on your homework or your schoolwork that day, you don't get 100%. That's okay. So it really gave opportunity in the struggle to have some great heart-to-heart conversations about, how we're designed, how we're gifted, and to take that pressure off. Like, it's okay not to be awesome in this subject. So
right.
um, my second one, I'm gonna forget what it was. Wow. Give me a second, it'll come back to me.
Or
Hmm.
come back to you tonight.
Yeah. Or maybe it won't. Oh man, it was a good one too. You think I wouldn't lose it, but that's what happens, right?
And if it comes back, then we'll just come back to it.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, so you have 10 years of experience, and there's a lot of new moms. And I know when I was a new mom, I was just asking everyone I knew who was homeschooling. I wanted to meet the moms, I wanted to meet their families, I wanted to find out how they did things. I had so many questions. So what would you say to a young mom who is just starting out and doesn't know where to start? you know um, when you go to pick curriculum, it's like you're blown away. It's even worse now than it was when we started.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. Oh, that is so tough. I think a lot of this comes down to your personality. Some of us can look at those curriculum magazines and just get excited and really dive into them and kind of pick and choose what we like. And some of us look at those magazines and just want to cry and run the other direction. So I think you have to know your personality, number one. Definitely meet with moms, ask moms questions, look at their stuff. I know I like to hold it in my hands and page through it because I
Yeah.
can really see, more what it's like. Um, but also just, I think, take it slow. You don't, when your kid's in kindergarten and first grade, you don't have to figure it all out. Honestly, I started with a box curriculum. I started with My Father's World, which is kind of everything in one, and use the library for, extra books to read and whatever.
Mhm.
Um, and the lesson plans are laid out. You pretty much open and go. And I'm a school teacher, so people were like, "Oh, this must be easy for you." Well, it was not easy for me because teaching in school is much different than teaching at home, where I'm kind of tutoring individual students at different levels, and they're my kids, so they
Mhm.
don't have that same like, "Oh, my teacher, I love her."
And then you have
um,
the interruptions of home, which
yeah,
could be really about anything.
exactly. And it really, I mean, homeschooling and doing home are two different jobs, two different full-time jobs, really.
Yeah.
Not to overwhelm anybody by saying that, but just giving yourself grace for that. So yeah, I started with an all-in-one just to kind of get rolling because it was simple. I had lots of little kids. We were still growing our family, and that's what I needed to do to kind of get into it. And then I've just grown with it. So I think one of the biggest things I've learned, and something I would tell myself starting over, is you don't have to figure it all out the first 2 years, and it will be changing all throughout, because as you learn more about what works and what you like, you also learn more about your kids and what works for them. So again, it's finding what works for me, but also for my kids. And that can change with each kid because we all know they're very different people. So I feel like there really isn't an arrival. At least there hasn't been for me. I've not come to a point where, okay, I've got my systems all in place and it's just working like clockwork. It really isn't like that because we're talking about real people, real individuals here. And so just like all of our relationships, how they ebb and flow, and there's always, different things to deal with personality and all of it. It's the same thing with your kids and with homeschooling. So it's going to ebb and flow, and they're going to grow and change. They're going to hit puberty, and all of a sudden they're a different person for a little bit. And so I think just really accepting the fact that there is no one way to do it, even for yourself. And the other thing I would kind of warn against, again, ask questions from other moms, get advice, get encouragement, because you can really glean a lot from them. But be careful not to look for that one person that you're going to completely model your homeschool after. Mm-hmm. I think in life in general, like with our large family and what we were doing, I was looking for that. I thought there's got to be that one family out there that, I can do everything that they're doing and it's going to work out great. Yeah. And I would find a mom of a large family and homeschooling. I'm like, oh, this is the one. And then I'd see things like, well, I don't really like that. That doesn't work for me. And I'd realize like, I can't do it quite like that. And I was okay with that, but I would feel disappointed that that wasn't my role model. And I came to the reality that there isn't going to be one person that I can emulate. I can glean and grow from the moms around me, the other homeschooling moms, but I can't imitate them exactly. And that's okay. That's actually a good thing.
Yeah. That's good advice. And to not compare yourself too, because it's so easy to always feel like, oh, I should be more of this kind of mom or that kind of mom. And you just have to accept who you are and who your kids are and the way your family rolls. And it's, and I think when you accept that, there's just freedom and you can enjoy what you're doing. But if you try to match that to someone's academic standard or some other kind of ideal that you have that you think is so great, it's just going to lead to disappointment.
Yes. And, I call myself kind of a curriculum junkie because I love seeing what other people do. I evaluate for homeschool families and I get to see a lot of different things that they're doing. And I always want to try what they're doing. And sometimes I have, tried something that they've done and it's been great. And sometimes I've just been like, no, I don't need to try that. That works for them. But what we have going here is working for us too. So it is a danger to always want to be trying to do what the other one does. So yeah, can't put it in a box. That's for sure. It's just like life.
Okay, well, I want to ask you about sports because I just feel like your family does sports really well. You have most of your girls, your older girls. Well, I'll just let you tell me what you all do for sports.
Okay. So I was an athlete from a very young age, and I did sports through high school and college, and I coached for, 9 years after college and into having my 6th child before I resigned. And we had started homeschooling as well. So it was a huge part of my life. My husband was also into sports, not quite to the extent, but definitely enjoyed them. And we were given kids who also love sports and are athletic. So, when we started dreaming of and creating a vision for our family, we could have gone 2 ways. And one would have been we don't do a whole lot outside of our family. We get a homestead and we just do life at home and we do all the animals and we do all this at home. And we're restricted a little bit by our, what we do for a living and all that too. Obviously there's so many factors into these decisions, but, or we can be doing sports and pursuing that, but it wasn't going to work to do both because when you do pursue sports, you're out and about more. And so we kind of battled this, like, what do we do? And the reality is that it just kind of became clear to us, our kids were just really interested in sports and athletics. They were gifted in them. And we felt like we wanted to give them that opportunity to pursue that. I found a lot of joy in sports throughout my life. I've learned a lot in sports throughout my life. I've made a lot of relationships and connections and still have and do. So there was a lot of value in that. And we decided if that's the route they want to go, then we're willing to help them make that happen. Now, you can't ask a 4-year-old, like, "Ooh, is this what you want for your life?" Because they don't know. "Yes, mommy, I want to try everything." So it's a little bit of, you are kind of deciding for them. But we also, for the most part, waited until they were 9 or 10, which doesn't sound real old. But in today's day and age, kids start sports when they are like 4and 5. So waiting until 9 or 10 actually felt really late. But we did. We waited for the most part until they were 9 or 10, and then, if they have a sport they want to pursue. And they don't all do the same thing. I wish we were a family of just runners, and we would just run, because all you need is a pair of running shoes and a bottle of water, and you're good to go. We can do it all together, right? But they're not. I have 2 soccer players. I have 2 gymnasts. My oldest daughter was pursuing archery for a bit. My one daughter is an obvious talented runner. She loves to run. So, and the rest yet to be seen. But so we are going a lot of different directions. And yes, our life is busy, but we've seen a lot of value in it. And one of the things I love about it too is it really allows us to rub shoulders with people who are very different from us. There's not a ton of homeschooling families doing the local club sports or even the school sports. So we found ourselves in an environment that was very different from what we're used to. And while I don't love the idea of sending my kids into public school system, surrounded by people with very different worldviews for 6 hours a day, I do like the idea of them rubbing shoulders with people who are very different from them for short periods of time. Under coaches I can trust. And I say that loosely because I don't always know their coaches very well, but you can bet, just like someone who sends their kid to public school who, is in the classroom and around the teachers and trying to get to know them. I definitely ask questions of them. I talk to them. I find out about them. And again, it's for short periods of time that they are in those environments, and it's created some great opportunities for questions and conversations, and why do they do that and we don't. It's also brought struggles with all my friends have a phone when they're 9, why don't I? Not those questions that you really want to deal with, but they learn from all of it. So it's really been overall a very positive experience, and we've revisited a couple times. Actually, just within the last year or two, we said to the kids, what do you want to do? Do you want to keep down this path, or do you want to pull back and let's get a bigger property and do this other thing? And they all were like, no, we like what we're doing. We're having fun with it. It's good for us. So, and again, they're older, so we could have that conversation too. But yeah, that's kind of been our journey. We've done club soccer through, we live in Lancaster, so it was Penn Legacy, PA Classics. We've done some school sports already, and this fall, Tessa, she's going to 9th grade, will play high school soccer. So we've done both of those. There's also lots of opportunities if you're interested in sports through rec centers or gyms. If you're from Lancaster, Nook Sports has all kinds of opportunities. And some of them actually have specific homeschool during the day things as well. Lancaster Archery, you can do archery there. So there's many, many avenues to pursuing sports if that's what your family decides to do, or if your kids are interested in that. And there are some homeschool groups that do sports. I don't know, have you guys done the Teach Soccer as well?
Yeah.
Okay. There's also
soccer, baseball. They've done basketball through the rec leagues.
Right.
But yeah, so there are homeschool leagues around in this area.
Right. So that can be an option too. We chose to not use those for various reasons. And can I know for sure that they won't ever encounter something that I wouldn't want them to encounter in those environments? No. In fact, Tessa's been training with the high school girls, and just the other day she said, Mom, some of them use some pretty bad language. And I was like, how do you feel about that? Are you okay with that? She's like, well, I don't really like it, but it doesn't really bother me. And, had that conversation people will choose to do that. You can't avoid it. You can't change that.
Really
and you
important conversations.
Yeah, definitely. And they notice that, and will they someday use bad language? Maybe, but as they're growing, that's going to be their choice of who they become. And all we can do is instill them with what we believe and why we believe it. And we're serving a God who loves all things pure and holy. And so, but I want to have conversations like that now while they're at home,
Yeah.
while they're still under our teaching and our rules and policies, and because they will encounter it if they go off to college, for sure, even as they get jobs. I can't keep them from that. So it's been a good thing to have those conversations, for sure.
Yeah.
I don't want to have them when they're 5, I'll be honest, but I'm good with it as they get closer to the teenage years. So, so anything else with how we've done sports, or?
I can't think of anything off the top of my head. That was really good. I feel like you hit a lot of things there.
And I will add that I didn't know how they'd be received by kids who aren't homeschooled. But I think I can honestly say, like, they have not been looked down upon
Yeah, I
for
was
being
gonna ask
homeschooled.
that. How did they break into the, was it tough or?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's going to depend on the personality of the kid, but I mean, Tessa is not a super loud, outgoing person. I wouldn't call her shy, but she's not one who's going to walk up to someone and be like, "Hey, I'm Tessa. Who are you?" She's not that type of kid. But when you play a sport on a team, like, you already have a common ground. And it doesn't take long for the kids to just, you're there to play soccer and have a good time, and they chat. And now, do they spend a lot of time with those kids outside of their sport? Not a ton. They've definitely built some relationships with their teammates and have done that some. But I wouldn't say for the most part that's where their core friendships have come from. It could. They could certainly find someone that they would have a super close friendship. But at this point, that hasn't happened to a lot for my kids. But they really haven't been looked down upon. If anything, the kids that go to school are like, "Oh, I'm so jealous. I wish I was homeschooled." And some of them have asked our parents to be homeschooled. So, and the coaches obviously have been very positive with it, and helpful and respectful of our decisions. So yeah.
Yeah. We've never experienced anything negative. I feel like people have been very accepting, and the boys were able to just jump right in. And yeah. Well, I think we're kind of going long on time, so we should probably wrap this up. But thank you so much for just telling about your family. I think this was really interesting. I think it's going to encourage a lot of people, and just really appreciate you sharing your story.
Oh, good. I hope so. I hope that it inspires someone rather than makes them feel like, "I can't do this." You can. One day at a time, one moment at a time.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, Melissa.
Sure. Have a great night.
All right. See ya.